Creepypastas. Internet horror stories that are created solely to disturb and frighten the reader. They achieve this sense of uneasiness by putting images of blood, demonic possessions, and haunted Sonic games in your head. Stories that involve creatures are usually accompanied by really good photoshopped images. So good, in fact, they might even be real. But they're not. And considering that it's almost Halloween time, I figured we could take today to delve into the world of creepypasta stories, games, and have a little retrospective on what made something as ridiculous as the word creepypasta famous. Creepypastas are the birthplace of some of the most famous horror icons on the internet, probably the most famous being the Slender Man creature. Slendy, whatever you want to call him. Yeah, you know, the guy with no face, wears a clean suit, has tentacles, and eats children. Or something. Like a lot of people, I first got introduced to Slender Man from the YouTube channel Marble Hornets, which was a really well done found footage documentary series. It was about a guy and his friends being hunted and stalked by Slender Man. Honestly now, I was really scared of these videos every time I watched them. They were so raw, which really helped give it that realistic tone, making you afraid to look outside because of what you saw in these videos, even in broad daylight. And mind you, I was 16 when I first saw these. I definitely recommend watching Marble Hornets if you're up for an unsettling chill. Anyway, what am I talking about? Video games? Yeah. It was obviously only a matter of time until someone capitalized on the Slendy hype. Out comes Slender the 8 Pages, and it was... I mean, it wasn't bad. Really. It did its job of being kinda scary. You travel this random forest searching, not for Slender Man, but for 8 pieces of paper. Oh man, the horror! But if it's your first time playing, you'll quickly come to realize that this forest is huge, and your character moves so slow that it sometimes takes you out of the spooky immersion, and it makes you feel like, yeah, okay, can we go faster? Throughout the years, there's been a lot of updates and remakes of this game, the most mainstream being Slender the Arrival, which actually has a resemblance of a story, good graphics, and pretty intense gameplay when need be. Thanks, Slender Man! When I grow up, I want to be just like you. Apart from the child abduction, that's just creepy. Hey, by the way, I just thought of this. Doesn't Slender Man kind of look like Nurgle from The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy? They're both demons from the underworld and have creepy tentacles, as well as wearing a fancy suit. Oh man, there's a game theory just waiting to happen! Now, some of the more stupid creepypasta stories take form in the series known as .exe. These stories basically revolve around a person who finds a beloved video game from their youth, so they decide to play it and, wouldn't you know, the game ends up being haunted and or possessed. And the character in the story usually ends up dead. The most popular, of course, being Sonic.exe, a story about a kid who finds a copy of Sonic the Hedgehog and, wouldn't you know, it's haunted. That shouldn't have come as a surprise. The game itself really isn't anything special. You play as Sonic's friends running around a stage that you definitely would not find in a regular Sonic game. The music is played in reverse, there's no enemies, and oh, there's that blood I was talking about. The most popular thing to come out of this game is probably this image. A scary picture of Sonic with the text, "I am God." But don't you worry, there's plenty more of these to be found. That's the main issue with these .exe games. They solely rely on jump scares to get the job done. Because if there's no jump scare, these games are literally just walking around and listening to broken music. And if you think I'm joking, I'm really not. Check this out. Mario.exe, a game I already talked about. You spend most of your time walking around an empty stage and listening to possessed music. And all of a sudden, boom! A jump scare. Pikachu.exe. Walking, music, jump scare. I think you get the idea. Not even sweet little Kirby is safe. Dreamland.exe. At first, the game plays like normal and looks pretty standard for a Kirby game. This lasts for a good while until we decide to inhale a Waddle Dee. And, oh, we get to watch it go through Kirby's digestive tract. And oh, of course, the Waddle Dee is haunted. What does this mean for Kirby? Well, not a lot actually. Apart from the stage now being a little dark, the Waddle Dees are afraid of Kirby, and... oh, I'm sorry, we're no longer playing as Kirby. We're playing as the accursed Yee-Brick. Which, yes, is just Kirby backwards. That's very original. Oh my, things have gone downhill very quickly. We should get out of here. Take me somewhere safe. Super Mario 64. There we go. That's better. A nice race with Koopa the Quick should get my mind off of what I just saw. Beat him! Wait, I don't remember this part. Where does this pipe go? A highway? A rundown basketball court next to a rundown highway? Well, it's been a couple years since I've played Mario 64. Maybe I just don't remember this. Let's press on. Koopas? Y'all alright? Yeah, this is definitely not supposed to happen. And then there's Gumball.exe. Proof that they'll make a .exe game about literally anything. One of the few video game-based creepypasta that I've actually somewhat enjoyed is Ben Drowned. Not because it's scary, no, not at all. It's another haunted game story, but the reason I love it so much is because of the YouTube video. It uses game footage to tell the story, without jump scares. Who'da thought? Atmosphere could actually work better than loud noises. And not all creepypastas based on video games are bad. For instance, Lavender Town Syndrome. The story goes like this. When visiting Lavender Town in early Japanese copies of Pokemon Red and Blue, the level's music was played at a certain unique frequency. This caused kids who played the game to feel depressed, and led to mass suicides in many young Japanese children. That's so brutal! And that's pretty much the main history of creepypasta. Now you pretty much know everything there is to know about the subject. At least in the video game genre. Nowadays, creepypastas are just the center of jokes. People are trying so hard to create the next Sonic.exe or Slender Man, to the point where every story is full of cliches and is more fun to just make fun of, as opposed to actually wanting to get scared with a good story. Ooh, Slender Man and Jeff the Killer having a baby. Oh. The famous creepypasta stories and icons were made with tender love and care, as opposed to now, where people just use famous cliches like haunting and possession and blood, just to attempt to get a cheap scare out of you. Oh, it's Animal Crossing.exe! So scary. During Slenderman's rise to fame in early 2010 is when creepypastas were really on top of the internet world. It created a whole new face of horror for a new generation of internet users. People in the 1930s had Dracula and Frankenstein. People in the 80s had Freddy and Jason. And people who grew up on the early internet had Slenderman and Sonic.exe. Wonderful. So thank you, internet, for giving kids the worst kind of nightmare fuel. So hey, have a nice Halloween, and after a fun night of trick-or-treating, while you're sitting in your room eating all of your candy, turn on a nice creepypasta story to finish off the spooky night. Or, if you want to have a nice laugh, play Gumball.exe. I'm still confused as to why this has to be a thing. It makes zero sense, and it was one of the last qualifying candidates to be a scary game. I mean, out of all of the